welcome to the Moviescramble podcast. You join us on a day when the clocks have moved forward and the weather has got significantly worse as well. I am joined today by a woman who, when she saw the title of this film, she thought, at last, her plans for world domination are actually moving forward. Someone has created a project where whenever they meet this woman, they are obviously having to say, "Hail, Mary." Mary, how are you doing?
All this laughing. What a fantastic intro. I'm hitting ready and everything. Oh my God, that's brilliant. I'm really well, not loving the fact that, as I say, it's raining sideways. There's hailstones, there's snow, there's God knows what else. However, maybe that's the type of vibe we're going for with this particular film, because the sun is dying.
True. As you probably have guessed, today we are talking about the 2026 film Project Hail Mary. It is directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, their first directorial film that they have completed since 2014. They have been well out of the action in terms of that, but obviously they've been very, very busy guys since then with lots of stuff. Screenplay is by Drew Goddard, who they have worked with in the past and who has also worked on material as well from the same writer. It stars Ryan Gosling, Sandra Hüller, James Ortiz and Lionel Boyce, as well as a cast of, we'll go into the cast later on. The film itself is basically the story of Ryland Grace, who is a middle school teacher and a former molecular biologist, who gets brought into a project to try and save the Earth. The Earth makes use of the sun for all of its power, and the sun is dimming for some reason. Now, it's been figured out that there is stuff, as they don't know what it is to begin with, that's going between the sun and Venus, and it's figured out that this is what's causing the drain on the sun, and in approximately 30 years' time, the population of the Earth is going to be in real deep shit because the solar rays will be so slight that we're basically going to be going into a new ice age. More than anything else, the temperatures are going to drop significantly. Now, for anybody who doesn't know the science behind these sort of things about the differences that people can actually live, it's not that much. That's why there's such an emphasis on global warming and rising temperatures and sea levels and things like that, because a raise of 1.5 degrees can have a significant effect. As well, depending on who you talk to, a lot of people deny that by saying, well, the place is nice and warm, and they make jokes about the fact that, how can it be so bloody cold if we have got global warming? Yeah. Which, kind of defeats the purpose. So anyway, Grace is brought into the project and is instrumental in figuring out what actually causes the problems that the sun is actually having. He gets involved in the development of a plan to try and save the Earth, and through circumstances actually finds himself on the ship that is actually doing this. This is pretty much the second scene in the film. You find Grace actually in space and pretty much not knowing what the hell is going on whatsoever. Now, Mary, what did you know about this film ahead of going into it? Had you read the book, or did you know anything very much about it?
No, do you know, I'm probably going to upset a lot of people by saying this. I'm not really a massive sci-fi fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't tend to go and see a lot of films set in space unless they involve Baby Yoda. But I didn't know anything about this because I hadn't seen The Martian by this point either, so I wasn't familiar with Andy Muir's work. So I knew that when we had talked about, a few weeks ago when we recorded our sort of films that were coming out this year, I knew that you had said this is one of your sort of most anticipated, and my husband said the same thing. It literally, he would go and watch Ryan Gosling, read the phone book, so he was really, really looking forward to this. I must admit, I was on the fence about whether or not I wanted to go and see this. Sandra Hüller was the big draw for me, because I've really enjoyed her performances in like Anatomy of a Fall and The Zone of Interest. So I went in a wee bit sort of in trepidation, I must admit. I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself in for, but I didn't know the story, I didn't know anything about the characters, and I wasn't familiar with Andy Weir's writing at all.
Okay, I was pretty much the same. I had seen the trailers for the film, but I hadn't read the book. I hadn't looked at what the story was in any way, because I wanted to go in relatively fresh. I get, yes, same with yourself. I like Sandra Hüller. I think she's fantastic. And this is her first Hollywood film as well, which is a bit of a draw as well, because I think she's a fantastic actor. She can turn her hand to quite a lot of different stuff, which is obviously the sign of a very good actor, I think. So what did you think about the very opening of it? Obviously you get a wee bit of information dump at the start, because it gives you the background as to why the sun is dimming, and then it suddenly cuts to the teacher. No, it doesn't cut to the teacher. It cuts to Grace actually waking up on the ship, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think
yes,
I like the fact that you are piecing this together along with him. I enjoy a film that's structured like that. Same like I like a book that's structured like that as well. I like the fact that we don't really know anything about him, and when we do get that first glimpse of him, it is obviously in his teaching capacity, and he seems like a really nice teacher. Like he's got like the soft fox cardigan on that looks really cozy, and he seems to be genuinely like encouraging towards his students. Like he wants them to learn, but he also wants them to care as well about the science and the world that we live in, and our place and our responsibility for being part of this sort of like fragile ecosystem. Like he seems like a really engaged teacher, but then obviously we find out quite quickly that he's taken the teaching job because he's sort of been outcast from the scientific community. So you get these little nuggets fairly quickly in the film. So the sort of scene setting is done quite quickly as to who he is, but you're still left with this, well, why on earth is he on this ship? And obviously when we meet him, he doesn't look like, tousled, perfectly put together Ryan Gosling. He's got the scraggly beard, his hair's really long, he's sort of groggy and out of it. So you kind of wonder how long he's been there as well. So it opens with a little bit of mystery, which I really enjoyed.
Yes, I especially like the fact that you don't know any more than the character knows.
Yeah.
And even though like when he wakes up, he is like completely disorientated, and he has sort of gaps in his memory. Now, as that comes back, you don't really get any indications that it has come back, other than you get the scene. It's not as if it goes and it goes back to, and he just suddenly starts remembering. It just kind of cuts and intersects these sort of bits of his backstory into it, and it's just assumed that he's remembering that at the same time. Obviously, he's a lot of time in his hands because of where he is. He is on a ship, and he's heading to another, basically, star system. The basis of why he is there or why he is doing that is not explained at the beginning as well, because it fits in with the fact that he doesn't know what's going on and what it's all about. So yes, what did you think about the introduction of his character, the first sort of 10 minutes when you see him on screen actually on the ship? What did you think about all that, the disorientation and everything?
So I really enjoyed that. I think he has such a lightness of touch in this film, which I didn't expect. I thought it was going to be really heavy and sciencey and lots of space jargon. But actually, we see him, he sort of does that kind of weird backflip, sort of out of his, trying to get out of his suit, and he lets out a scream as well, which is kind of similar to the scream that he has in The Nice Guys, which everybody obviously loves. So I think that it was quite a nice introduction to the character, because it also made him seem like he wasn't suited for space as well. So that maybe sort of lack of astronaut like professionalism that you were maybe expecting, he just doesn't have. So I really enjoyed that. And then of course, as the film progresses, we get lots of sort of dry asides, and he sort of mutters to himself, and we're kind of along for the journey with him, obviously, because he's got nobody else to talk to. But it definitely set up a character who, it gave you the vibe that he wasn't meant to be there, or at least he wasn't there in a sort of regular professional capacity. Like he wasn't skilled for the task at hand. He seemed quite clumsy. There was a kind of physical comedy element to it as well. And it it's settled me into the film a lot quicker than I thought I was going to, because it felt light. It wasn't, as I say, like really, really heavy in terms of jargon, or, you know, there wasn't like big dramatic music and straight away plunging you into lots of here's what the mission is. It was just him alone working out why the hell he was there. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I did like that element to it. It meant that you rooted for him right away and you
Yeah.
engaged with the character because it wasn't too sciencey or techy or like say over dramatic in terms of there wasn't like an imminent threat. He woke up and he was in the middle of nowhere pretty much in space and had to figure out what was going on. And of course he had a bit of he had a moment, let's say,
yes,
because he was trying to sort of get himself sorted, but he kind of vented everything. But you get a sense that he was kind of a practical guy. So even though he went through all this and did some sort of wild and crazy things to begin with, he kind of settled down and basically worked the problem. That's what it's all about with a good scientist. They work the problem, whatever it is, and they try and figure out what to do. And obviously that included trying to work out how to operate the ship as well, because he had no idea how to do that. He had no memory of whether he was a pilot or whether he was an engineer or whatever. So he had all that sort of stuff to do. And there was like wee montage of him like trying to sort of pilot the ship and things like that, and getting it horrendously wrong a lot of the time and all that, and like actually getting the gravity to work and everything. So yeah. I really liked all that. I liked the way that they developed it. It wasn't rushed, but again, it wasn't overly complicated as well. They didn't try to like push too much stuff at you as the audience to say, you know, this guy knows what he's doing or this guy doesn't know what he's doing. You just kind of, you worked it out around about the same time as him. So what did you think of Mr. Gosling's performance as Grace?
I mean, he basically carries this film. Like, we spend a lot of time with him, and I like, as I say, the snippets of him as a teacher, I thought were really revealing in the sense that he had this obvious passion that he was trying to imbue in these kids as well. And with this sort of initial space scenes, I like that he wasn't perfect at everything, because like, see, quite often in films somebody finds themselves in a situation they've never been in before, but as you say, like, they immediately know how to pilot the ship, they know what buttons to press, and suddenly they're in hyperspace and all the rest of it. Whereas I like the fact that there was time to develop him as a character and we were working out things with him. As I've said, I think his comedic timing is brilliant in this as well, and all the wee sort of asides he has. But I also think that he gives a real sense of like genuine emotion and panic and being overwhelmed, as you would be if you found yourself in the middle of space. So I think that we get to know him a lot in his moments of isolation, and I think that's really hard for an actor to do, is to carry the weight of this film, because this film is talking about big topics. Essentially, the earth is going to die, and yet when we're alone with him and he's sort of working things out, whether that's to do with the ship or piecing together parts of his life, I think that he's just so good at it. We get the sciencey brain, we get the problem solving, but we also see a lot of vulnerability with him, which just makes him so sympathetic. As you say, you root for him like from the off. And honestly, and I've said this in the review, I actually don't think the film would work with anyone else. He is able to do so much in terms of like the spectrum of human emotion. And sometimes it's just a wee look, you know, he carries his glasses along his jawline and stuff like that, and he'll put them back on, they sort of slide down, he kind of looks over the top of his glasses, and sometimes that's all it takes. It's just a wee look and you know exactly how he's feeling. It's actually brilliant. And listen, Ryan Gosling's given a lot of good performances over the years. Like, I'm a big fan of like The Nice Guys, like Every Teenage Girl I Saw, The Notebook, but he's perhaps not somebody I'd rush out to go and see his films just because he's in it. But I actually think this might be one of the best performances he's ever given in this film. It's just the weight of the entire film rests on him, and he carries it perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. He's in pretty much every scene in the film. And like I say, there's a whole sequence where it's like Castaway, the Tom Hanks film, where it's just him, you know, so it's like Castaway in space for a little bit. And with a less engaging actor, it would have been a bit of a slog. But because he has built up this persona really quickly and he's engaged with the audience really quickly, then they'll go along with what he's doing. And I don't think Ryan Gosling maybe 10 years ago would have been able to carry this film, but he's developed as an actor. He's always pushing himself just a wee bit more, even in sort of slighter roles. He has obviously worked with a variety of different directors, worked in different mediums. He's done comedy, he's done serious acting, obviously
Barbie, obviously.
And he's been in Barbie. So he has been pushing himself quite a lot with the roles he's been taking on. So this is just an extension of that. And this is just an actor who is very, very confident in his own abilities and been able to command the screen for such a long period of time. And I think it works really well. I don't think you're far off the mark by saying this is probably his best on-screen performance. It really does bring it here. And again, like what you said, could I see anybody else in this sort of role? You're looking at probably somebody like Tom Hanks, or a younger Tom Hanks, maybe being able to do this role. But yeah, there's not very many out there that would have the same sort of presence here, which is an interesting view on where we are with sort of heavyweight film actors these days. They're sort of working within the Hollywood system, not so much. There's ones that are working outside of it who are just sort of these titans, and other ones, the likes of Russell Crowe, who remind us occasionally that he is a top-notch actor, and then goes away and does, like, the Pope's Exorcist or something, But then they all do that. That's the thing. So they're all involved in that. So supporting actors in this film, the main one here is Sandra Hüller as Eva Stratt. What did you make of her and her performance?
Oh, she's just breathtaking and everything. It's interesting because I watched an interview with her, and whoever it was interviewing her said, I find the character really cold. And she was like, nope, she's just confident in what she's doing. And I thought that was a brilliant answer, because I would say she's a cool character, as in, like, very sort of on the level and quite stoic. I wouldn't say she was cold. She's got this incisiveness about her, and obviously a lot of intelligence, and her authority speaks for itself, because a room of people are full of scientists and astronauts and data analysts and engineers. They all listen to her. And I thought her composure, the fact that she didn't give in to histrionics at any point, really helped move the emotional moments of the film along, because she wouldn't be a hysterical woman, not in that work environment anyway, but the fact that she was quite detached from the work that she was doing really drove that character. I think it's quite an understated performance, but nonetheless really, really compelling. The scenes with her and Gosling together, because their personalities of their characters are so different, work really perfectly. And Ryan Gosling has said in several interviews that he thinks she is the most fun person he's ever worked with. So I feel like there's a lot of mischief about her as a person that obviously doesn't translate into this character, but I thought that she was a really impressive character, and also great to see a fantastic role for a woman, like written like that as well. It's one of those roles that could have been written for a man sort of thing, because it was so just really authoritative and really. So I think she's absolutely brilliant in it. And of course, as I'm sure we'll talk about, she does kind of steal the show a little bit with her karaoke session.
Yes, she definitely does. You're right. It's the kind of character that in another project, another film or book or whatever, would be like a military general kind of idea, who's very sure of himself and he commands the room. So it was nice to see that it was obviously a female role. It was obviously a female role in the book as well. It was Dutch rather than East German in the book, but doesn't really matter either way. It's not a big deal, to be perfectly honest. I thought she was excellent in this film. Just the fact that she held herself back from any sort of emotion. She could have had like wee sort of ticks or wee glances or anything, but no, it was just straightforward. She was focused on what she was doing, and she didn't really take any shit from anybody. She'd let people vent as much as they wanted to, but then she would just go on with what her original train of thought was. It didn't really change a lot of things, which made perfect sense. And that was because she was intelligent and she had a purpose. She knew what her purpose was as well, which I really liked that. And it was a total contrast to the fact that there's all this hysteria going on around her in terms of, so many things need to be done. It's a massive undertaking. what's actually happening here, there, everywhere. But she was right in the middle of it. And she just said, well, this is what we're doing. This is what we need to do. And it was, bits like that. There was a character in, what was it, Three Body Problem, who was a similar character. It was a man in that. And he was a very detached character as well. And he just said, right, this is what we're doing. This is what you're doing. And all the people around him were all doing crazy things. It was it's not a similar process. This was like an alien invasion was going to be happening in 30 years' time, but they knew about it. And it was how they're going to start defending themselves from that. So it was a similar sort of vibe to the character. That's where I sort of saw parallels to it. But she made it her own. She was very, very good in it. And she was an obvious leader without having to command respect through action. It was just all through what needed to be done and being stoic and everything. And like you say, there is one element where she breaks character at the insistence of Grace, because they're on the aircraft carrier where they're all carrying out the work in order to build the ship and develop the fuel necessary for traveling in space. And she detaches herself. She doesn't socialize with any of the people, but he forces her. Well, he kind of indicates it probably be a good idea if you kind of show yourself.
Joined in.
Did you like that wee scene where she actually joined in and did the singing?
If anyone's seen the film Tony Erdmann, which she is in, can't remember when that came out, early 2000s, she does a really good rendition of The Greatest Love of All in that film as well. So she's obviously partial to a bit of on-screen singing, but obviously the story goes that they said to her, Sandra, we're adding in this scene with karaoke because it's not in the book. And she went, okay, I'll do it, but only if I can do Harry Styles' Sign of the Times. And Ryan Gosling in an interview was joking, saying, could you maybe get something that we could clear and afford a little bit better? And she was like, no, I'm doing it and I want to do this song because the song is relevant to what's going on around her. And it's, again, even the performance of that song and the lyrics that she's singing that we see on screen, it's so composed and it's so delicate. Like, she's not singing it like a big power ballad. She's not trying to be like a pop princess. She's just kind of letting the words seep into the room and let them sink into everybody who's about to go on this mission. I mean, it is so good. I think that should be talked about from now until the very, very end of her career. She's just, again, the whole room is just looking at her and there's a silence that kind of falls across the place because this woman who's been so detached and so in control and so authoritative has kind of let her guard down a little bit and let a little bit of her personality show. But in doing so, she's reminded them of the gravity of the situation, if you'll pardon the pun. I thought it was brilliant. I think she's brilliant. So to have her just stand up and do that, I thought, wow, there really is nothing you can do.
It was an unusual moment in the film because up until that point it was sciencey, it was technical. We've got a job to do and these are the things that we need to do in order to do that job. And then to have this sort of wee musical interlude in there worked really well. I didn't think it was out of place at all or anything, and it just emphasised the fact that she understood that there were certain things she needed to do in order to motivate people, because they are basically, in some cases, they're going to be spending the rest of their life doing this. Is like a 30-year project. It's a long sort of term thing. So if she's going to command respect from these people, then sometimes, she does have to be involved with them rather than being so detached. And it was a really good version of that song, actually. I really liked it. So far, we've avoided talking about what some people regarded as being spoilers for the film, but it was in the trailer, so you can't. And it was actually discussed at the time when the trailer came out, saying, well, this is a bit of a spoiler for the film, but if it was included in the trailer and you understood the premise of what the film was about, then you would understand that they would want to show off the character of Rocky. Yay! The alien that Grace meets, because if you think about it logically, this isn't a problem that's just going to affect one planet. It's affecting stars in all different systems. So therefore, it would affect other areas where there is life. of some sort. And the story itself leads Grace and his ship to a star that is not dimming, and they have to find out why. And obviously, when you think about it, this would attract other sentient races because they would be coming up with the same idea. Why is this one single star not dimming, whereas all the others that we can see in the night sky are? So he meets Rocky. What did you think about the character of Rocky?
Baby Yoda, who? I did not think in this lifetime that I would be full on tears and snotters at a space rock, but I absolutely was. Like, I think that this is such an astonishing feat because it's not CG. They actually use like a practical puppet in order to, engage with Ryan Gosling during this film, and it's a rock. It's a spider or crab shaped rock, but it has this emotional depth and clarity that it brings to the film that I just wasn't expecting. He is voiced by James Ortiz, and I think that the vocal performance is so good. There's lots of like chirps and clicks and whimpers, but also just the way he speaks. So, he's like Grace's upset question, and like everything's very like literal. And then you have like the amazed, and the wee fist my bump as well, which I keep saying to my husband as well. I just think like the character is so vivid and so alive, and I just wasn't expecting that at all, because it's not like your typical cutesy design character. It's not got big ears or big eyes. Like, it actually looks like a thing that quite a lot of people are afraid of, and yet their sort of friendship that blossoms through this kind of like improvised sign language system, and like the way that they communicate with each other. Like, Rylan sort of learns how to translate his language into obviously like English, and they communicate back and forward. It's so funny, but it's so tender as well. And honestly, I really wasn't expecting to feel so emotional about this film and this character, but it is their bond and their sort of wee quiet moments together that, I mean, like I said, I was full on tears and snotters. Anytime there was a silent moment in the film, I was trying not to do the whole thing again, because I was a mess, a complete mess. And as I say, I just wasn't expecting to feel this way, but it's so well done.
It is, and like you say, like, it's a rock, and it doesn't have any features whatsoever. Nothing. It's like basically it's a smooth surface and a couple of legs. It, like you say, looks like a bit like a spider. But yes, and it's all got to do with the way that it moves and the way that it reacts and the way that it talks, that you actually get engaged with this creature, which is amazing. Now, obviously, there's the whole getting to know each other. And what did you think of the way that they were introduced to each other? The sort of initial bit.
Yeah, I thought that was really like, because at first you kind of maybe think, oh my God, is this a predator? Because we've all seen Alien, right? So you're thinking immediately this is something wrong. But it's Grace's sort of natural curiosity, because he is a scientist and he is somebody who genuinely enjoys learning, that sort of brings them together. So he wants to know what the language is like. He wants to understand the movement, because the movement at times can be quite chaotic from Rocky as well. But when they first sort of see each other through that kind of prism, I suppose you would call it, like the kind of orb thing, and he's doing like the dancing sequence as well to see if you'll copy his body language. Like, again, from the offset, it's just such a lovable moment that you're like, oh, I hope they're friends, because this is really nice. But as I say, initially, having not read the book, I was like, oh my God, is this a predator? Is he coming to eat the ship? But what happens is like love blossoms instead.
Yeah, it was really nice, and the fact that they used the Close Encounters, the 5 notes from Close Encounters as well, and I thought, well, I'll try that for communication and things like that. So, yeah, I like that whole sequence, and then obviously it went on to sort of a montage of them getting to know each other and working together and working sort of this common language and everything. And I just thought it was cracking, and you could tell that Rocky was playful as well all the time, just by the way that it moved. Well, I suppose it was a he, because he did have a partner back on his own world as well. So yeah, and I really liked the fact that he called, because he was Rocky, that his partner was called Adrian. So it just worked really nicely. And obviously it meant nothing to Rocky That it's just a name, but everybody else was like pissing himself laughing because of the link and all that. I really, really liked that. Now, with the character itself, the character of Rocky, I found it really interesting that even though this was a character that came from a race that were space travelers and everything, but they didn't know everything in the same way that Grace and humans don't know everything. And they were kind of trying to figure out what was wrong, so they were able to try and figure it out together, but they didn't have like an understanding of relativity, for instance, whereas humans obviously don't have an understanding of like sublight travel and all this sort of stuff. They had to develop it using the astrophage they took samples of, and they were able to reproduce. That was part of the initial design. What did you think of that? The fact that neither the human or Rocky were sort of smarter than each other. Did you think that was a good wee sort of combination?
Yeah, I thought that was great because it really leveled the playing field, and it also made you appreciate that as much as Rocky obviously was this kind of cute companion, his race, his alien species were obviously very intelligent. You know, they talked about like the research that he had done, like sort of through his own planet, and it just goes to show you, like, a lot of humans obviously think that if there's life out there, that humanity would be the sort of top of the food chain, if you want to call it that. But here was a sort of alien species that were doing their own research, and they had their own understanding of things. So I like the fact that it put them in a sort of like even keel, but it also gave them the opportunity to work together as well. So learning from each other, not just how to communicate and, you know, the wee thumbs down thing, which is now my wee favourite thing in the world, but they actually could do science together. Like, they could perform experiments together, they could understand things together, they could come to conclusions together. And I thought that gave it a really interesting dynamic, because it's not just this cutesy little companion that says funny things and, you know, can't do a thumbs up. It's actually a very intelligent, sentient being and has a lot to bring to the table to humanity. And again, it's this notion that we don't have all the answers and we could learn from others if we just took the time.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yes. The best qualities of people that you're kind of looking for in this kind of idea. What did you think about the fact that it was this sort of two-person story, but the mid part of that film was Grace and Rocky, and they were just working the problem together, and they obviously developed a relationship there as well. Were you expecting that in the middle of this sort of end of the world science fiction type film?
No, do you know, I thought it was going to be a lot. There is obviously a lot of flashbacks in the film as you piece it together, and there's obviously flashbacks that have a real emotional impact on your understanding of how we've got to this film, essentially. But I wasn't expecting, like, not a buddy comedy, because it's not quite that, but it's on that kind of vein where, you know, you're sort of rooting for these two just to get along, and they build big sort of like runs for Rocky to move up and down in, and, you know, they share like these moments together. Like, Ryland shows him through like a kind of projector, like different parts of Earth and like what it feels like to be on the beach and have the sand between your toes, and he sort of presses his little woolly Earth to the orb that Rocky's in, so he can feel it. And this is what I mean. Like, I was an absolute wreck because I wasn't anticipating that, you know, a lot of the times, and very similar in The Martian, actually, when a character is lost in space, they are by themselves and it's high drama, high stakes, you know, quite literally life and death. And whilst the stakes are the same here, I felt like it really took the time to develop that sort of two-hander that makes up, as you say, like quite a chunk of the film's runtime. And it works perfectly. Like, you are so emotionally connected to a film that, you know, the themes of these films and the narrative of this film, like the Earth's going to die, somebody's lost in space, that's all been done before, several times over. But there's an emotional sort of layer to this film that I just wasn't expecting at all. And that's probably why I maybe wasn't looking forward to going to see it, because I thought it was going to be your sort of typical the Earth is dying kind of film. I didn't expect that I was going to be rooting for the wee fella to help save the world, you know?
No, you're right. It was a surprise to me, obviously, because I was in the same situation as you. I didn't know really anything about the film. So this relationship that develops in the middle of the film was a complete surprise to me. And a lot of it was to do with the way that they found common ground really quickly, and they had a similar sense of humour as well, which I found really interesting. And I liked those bits where they were sitting watching like the beach or whatever, that kind of thing. I thought that was very nice. It was a very good use of visuals at that point. Now, I wondered why that was actually there, why they would have that in the spaceship when taking up valuable space, but it worked to send. I suppose that if you're on a voyage for such a long period of time, then you need something to keep you stimulated. So I kind of get that, I suppose. But yes, I really did enjoy that, and I liked the fact that they made Rocky so mobile by putting him in his own wee sphere, and he could bounce about all over the place within the ship. And he was curious about the ship as well. He wanted to see everything about it. It was almost sort of childlike in that respect, but you were brought back to the problem occasionally and quickly as well, and you realised that it wasn't just a one-sided input, it was input from both of them, and they were working as peers rather than human strong telling the cutesy wee alien what to do. And they didn't treat Rocky as a cutesy wee alien. They didn't have the same, because he didn't have a face or ears. This is what kind of makes you like naughty or nice, really, in terms of whether it's, and the fact that they synthesized his voice. It wasn't it didn't have a voice that you couldn't understand what he was saying. So it had to be translated, and they wanted it to translate it in such a way that it was understandable, but it wasn't cutesy in any way. This is where it comes into effect with all of the choices in terms of the voices, what the voice we're going to use. What did you think about that wee sequence when they're going through that?
That was brilliant, honestly, because I didn't see it in the credits. I don't know if that was genuinely Meryl Streep or not, but that really made me laugh when they said, like, he's like, Meryl Streep can do anything. Like, I think it's interesting, though, because it does show you a sort of process in terms of like filmmaking, like when they're coming to cast like voice actors for these particular roles, how a different voice really makes you feel differently about the character. Ryan Gosling has said that during that scene, he actually had an earpiece in, and it was his kids doing silly little voices. So he was reacting to that. But it does go to show you how a voice can really change the character. Now, Rocky's voice obviously is quite, it's not monotonous, but he says that, like, he literally says the word question, at the end of a question. There's a sort of relative roboticness to it, but at the same time it does feel so full of life, and as you say, sort of like childlike and curious and vivid, and it's a great piece of voice acting. It really is.
It's something quite special. Apparently the Meryl Streep element was unscripted to begin with. It was an off-the-cuff remark that Ryan Gosling actually made when they were going through these voices, and they didn't actually have the voices, but he'd said, like Meryl Streep, she could do anything. Apparently the producers contacted Meryl Streep in order for her to record that piece of dialogue. So it is actually, she's credited, and all the people, the rejected voices, are all credited because they are all different people. So I thought that was particularly nice, the way they did that, and it just added an extra wee element to it. Now, Lord and Miller are known for having quite a lot of comedic elements in their films. It was one of the reasons why they get kicked off of the Solo, a Star Wars film, because the tone of it wasn't what they were looking for. It was too sort of slapstick, what they were doing. Now, there are a number of elements in this film where there is a lot of dry humour, and there's a lot of, it's making use of Ryan Gosling's comedic talents that have been sort of developed maybe over the last decade, where he wasn't regarded as being sort of a comedic actor. What did you think of the sort of the tone of it in that respect? Do you think it worked?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, this film was like 2.5 hours long. I think if it had been 2.5 hours of out and out high stakes drama, that gets very tiring very quickly. Equally, if it had been 2.5 hours of slapstick, you'd have felt, well, this doesn't really feel right because, isn't the earth dying sort of thing. So I feel like they get the tone really right. There's comedy when there needs to be. As I say, he's constantly sort of muttering to himself, and the wee back and forths he has with Rocky are quite funny as well. And when we first meet him, as I say, we get physical comedy because he's like trying to get himself out of his spacesuit and he ends up sort of doing a backflip that thumps against the floor. So like there is a lot of that, but I think the balance is just right. I think this comes back to kind of what we were saying about Gosling's performance. Like he is someone who can do taciturn Nicholas Winding Refn performance, but he can also be Ken. Like, and I think we get to see the best of both worlds in this film. So I think the lightness of touch is absolutely warranted throughout. Like it brings a humanity to it all that if he was in hysterics the whole time, you'd be like, right, okay, this is actually getting annoying now. So the fact that he gets to sort of flex his comedic chops, I think is well earned in this film. Like there's never a moment where you just think, oh, that joke didn't really land, or there's no way someone would crack a joke in that situation. Like it all feels really, really warranted, which I think is the important thing about this. Like the humor is earned and deserved. It's never kind of shoehorned in for the sake of cracking a joke.
Yeah, there's elements of it where he's working in the lab and he's doing things don't kind of work out as supposed to, and that's quite comedic, but it's fitting in with the fact that he's this sort of fish out of water. He's not been involved in sort of any sort of science at that level for such a long time, so he is bumbling about, and there's the whole thing of him getting used to the ship as well, the spaceship, and how he plays dress up and he just puts on all the clothes he can find and everything, and he's wearing t-shirts with cat's eyes on them and stuff like that. So yes, but it was quite subtly done in that sort of way. But there's also wee sort of elements in it which you don't really think about at the time, and part of it's got to do with the title of the film as well. So obviously, what did you take from the title of the film, Project Hail Mary? What did you think that actually meant?
So I knew it was an American footballing term. And for me, I thought it meant like a last gasp attempt, which pretty much does sum up what they're doing in this film. So you kind of get the impression going in that like this is the last chance. So when we first meet Gosling, obviously, and he is like, looking a bit disheveled, you're like, is this humanity's last chance? Really? This guy who can't even get himself out of bed? So even that's a little bit funny when you sort of kind of think about that. But the title definitely gives the film a sense of urgency and perhaps like danger and a little bit of immediacy that even if you don't necessarily know where it comes from, like nobody says a Hail Mary these days, I guess, unless they're in dire straits. So it does make it sound like it is like a real sort of panic situation.
Yep. Well, apparently the name of the ship is the Hail Mary as well.
Ah, right. Okay. I don't know if I clocked that during the film.
I didn't clock it during the film. I read about it afterwards because someone had pointed out that the film title is the name of the ship, which also obviously is the same. And then when you look at it, the only person actually on the ship is someone called Grace. So it's Hail Mary, full of grace.
Oh, very good. I love that. That's cool.
I don't know if that's intentional, but that's pretty good. And obviously you've got the other sort of religious aspect as well, because Rocky always says amaze, 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 which obviously Amazing Grace as well.
Yeah. So, my God, this is so cool. I love that.
Which I thought was quite nice. Obviously, I don't know if I'm assuming it was totally deliberate because these things are well thought out as part of the story and things like that. So yes, it did come out. You are right. A Hail Mary pass in American football is one that is done at the very last second of the game, and basically they just throw the ball into the end zone in the hope that one of their team will catch it and basically get enough points in order to win the game. And usually see there's about 15 guys all scrambling to try and get this ball, and that's what it's called. It's called a Hail Mary pass, like a sort of a shot into the dark idea. So it works in that sort of respect as well. So the music and the soundscape in the film, music was done by Daniel Pemberton, and there was a couple of wee needle drops in there as well. How did you think that kind of fitted in with the soundscape, which is obviously very sort of space orientated for maybe about 2/3 of the film? You think it was good? Or what?
Oh God, the score is stunning. Like, you have moments where it is like operatic, you know, it's really grand, it feels really overwhelming, it feels really emotional. And then you have long stretches of silence as well, which is equally powerful, because I think the sign of a good composer, obviously, is someone who knows when to use silence as well. And I think that these sort of long stretches of not hearing a thing other than the soundscape of the ship itself really underline how isolated he is. And then when we do get these sort of musical swells, they do feel, again, like really earned, because, you know, it's been leading up to like a specific point, like the Petrova line sequence, for example. I think it was just a fantastic sort of all-encapsulating type of score as well. Like, it really made you feel part of certain sequences when the music was really swelling up as well. And equally, when you were just hearing the little sort of like sounds within the ship, it made you feel like you were really like on board with Grace. So I think it's really, really well done. I think it is powerful when it needs to be, but as I say, knows when to sort of like take a step back, which again, I think is a sign of obviously a great composer.
Yeah, it works really well in that respect. It doesn't sort of be in your face an awful lot, which is obviously, like you say, a very good sign, because it complements what's going on in the screen. And as you so rightly pointed out, when there's no need for it, when you need to know that Grace is in space and he is all alone, then you don't need anything to accompany the visuals on screen. You can just take it from the silence that he is in this really sort of dire situation. And yeah, it works really well. Daniel Pemberton is a fantastic composer. I've heard quite a few of his scores, and it's always, you know, just totally spot on. He works really hard at collaborating with the filmmakers. I think he works relatively quickly as well. I think I've read an interview with him where he says he just gets totally on with it, and he can just work away at stuff. It just takes a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And he's got like sort of the basis for, you know, what obviously it's stuff he needs to be expanded on and changed and altered and all that, but he usually works really quickly, and he has like a very good sense of what's needed from sort of day one, which is a real skill, let's face it. So yeah. So I know there's quite a few scenes in this, but which one really stands out for you from this film?
Oh, it has to be the Petrova line sequence. Ryan Gosling's character obviously sort of steps out on his own, and the screen is just, the whole thing is like fuchsia, and it's all these different sort of like strobes of light, and there's like little prisms of like kind of stars and stuff that are going all the way across the frame. And you've got Pemberton's score, of course, which is like getting a little bit operatic and a bit more emotional. That is the kind of moment that cinema is meant for. Like, you're sitting in your seat and you're just slack-jawed in awe at what you're seeing on screen. And Grace is reacting to what he's saying. You know, he's getting a little bit emotional because he can't believe that he's kind of got the privilege of seeing this in real life. And you absolutely feel the same way. It's just genuinely stunning to look at. And of course, you know, you don't see space, or certainly you don't think of it in those colors either. You think of space as like dark and lonely, and then suddenly you get this absolute burst of light, and it's just incredible to look at. And that's, you know, Gosling obviously has been out this week saying it's not your job to come to the cinema, it's our job to make movies that are good enough to make you want to come to the cinema. That scene alone, that would make me want to go to the cinema over and over again. Just stunning to look at.
Yep. I totally get that. It's a very good sequence. Mine's is a much sort of smaller one, and I've mentioned it before. It's when they're having their initial interactions and they're getting to know each other, and the use of the Close Encounters V5 sequence and all that. I thought that was just fantastic, because that sets up basically the next hour in terms of it establishes the relationship really quickly. And it is quite a small moment, but I think it really, really works, which was a surprise, because like I say, there are a few big moments in this film as well, but I just sometimes just like the wee bits that just kind of inform everything else, because if you don't have that and then it just suddenly they're connecting, you say, well, why? What was the initial one really like? So it's very, very important that they get that bit right. So I was most impressed, which I'm sure they don't actually care about, let's face it. Oh man. So, I don't even know why I keep asking this question, but would you recommend this film to others?
Honestly, I'm so shocked that I'm saying yes to this, because on paper, this is not a film that I would enjoy, but I absolutely love this. Like, there's not a dull moment. There's not a scene that doesn't feel like extraneous. There's not a interaction that feels awkward or forced. It's just beautiful to look at, really well scored, really well written. You know, the performances are phenomenal throughout. And genuinely, like me, see, even if you feel like sci-fi is not your thing, go and see this film, because it's an incredible feat of cinema. It is so worth going to see. And I know for a fact I'm going to end up seeking out the novel and reading it, and obviously getting a Blu-ray copy of this, because it was just stunning. And like I said, I was in full tears and snotters by the end of it. It is just emotionally quite staggering. So yeah, in a nutshell, yes, I would recommend it.
Yeah. You could have got there a lot quicker, but it's
Yeah,
quite good.
sorry.
No, don't worry about it. This is what this is all about. I would totally agree with you. I think it's a fantastic film. It kind of lived up to the expectations I had from the trailer of it. Obviously, like you said at the start of the show, I was looking forward to this. I noted this as being one of the films I was looking forward to this year. It has not disappointed in any way. I look forward to watching it again when it comes out on home platforms. But at the moment, it is still in cinemas, and it is a cinematic experience for the scale of the film, if not any other part of it. It's a great watch at the cinema, and it doesn't feel like a 2.5-hour film at all. It feels like an awful lot shorter, which is always a very good sign, because if you're sitting watching a film for 2.5 hours and it's not good, it's
a lot of clock watching is never a good sign, is it?
No. So to tie in with the fact that there is a scene in this film where Sandra Hüller breaks out of her sort of stoic character and does karaoke, as we discussed earlier, in a scene where she basically steals it. It's very memorable. So what we're going to do is look at our favourite scene-stealing actors and the films that they stole the scenes in. Now, we've got 3 each to choose from. Mary, what's your first one?
I'm going to do some honourable mentions first, because I actually really struggled to narrow this down to just the 3. So we obviously have Elsa Lanchester in The Bride of Frankenstein, which I knew I wasn't going to touch, because obviously we're going to chat about that on our Monsters box set. I have Sid Charisse in Singing in the Rain, Christopher Walken in Pulp Fiction, Mark Wahlberg in The Departed, and Alan Rickman in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So I was really struggling genuinely to narrow this down. But for my first pick, I have gone for Viola Davis in the 2008 film Doubt. So her character, Mrs. Miller, actually only appears for 10 minutes in the film, and it's like one scene. And she has a conversation with Sister Aloysius, who's played by Meryl Streep, which is a nice link back to Project Hail Mary. And it basically makes you really rethink the whole moral setup of the film. You know, she's full on sobbing, begging not to have her son taken out of the school. There's, you know, discussions about guilt and protection and survival and what it means to be a Black woman as well at the time that the film is set. And it's a scene that rattles Meryl Streep's character. And what I think is so excellent about this film is not only just the actual dialogue of the confrontation itself, but the fact that Viola Davis, who had been working her whole life, you know, and going for similar roles as Meryl Streep, finally got seen in the same way as Meryl. Like, she holds her own in this scene. Like, she is emotionally all over the place, but what she's saying is so meaningful. She delivers this completely devastating argument about how she knows what's best for her son, you know, regardless of the situation that's going on with Philip Seymour Hoffman's character. And it is widely regarded as one of the best scenes in the film. And I think it's a character that really changes your sort of thought process within the film. Like, she asks the question, or can I ask the question, like, what happens if the truth is really bad and unbearable? Which, obviously, with it being a sort of Catholic church setup, everyone's willing to sort of cover up everything that's going on throughout the film. And there's lots of whispers and there's lots of chatter, but there's never anyone that's willing to have like an honest conversation about it. And her perspective sort of forces Sister Aloysius to kind of change her tact for the rest of the film. So She was Oscar nominated for Best Supporting Actress, which again, for limited screen time, I think is quite an achievement. And interestingly, she was given like Breakthrough Performance Awards, despite the fact that, as I say, she had been working for a very long time. But I just think it's a film stealer, never mind a scene stealer. She is so good in this. And as I say, less than 10 minutes or so on screen, and she goes toe to toe with Meryl Streep and absolutely owns it. I couldn't think of a better performance to start on, and I love Viola Davis, so I'm only too happy to talk about her.
Nice. I have not seen this film.
Oh, it's a very stacked
reason.
cast. Yeah.
Yes, good. Yes, very much so. And it actually features one actor that I'm going to mention later on as well, I think.
Oh, okay.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it as well, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, he plays the priest.
Yeah.
Yes, so yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, so very good pick. Very good pick indeed. I had looked up lists of like sort of scene stealers, and that was consistently near the top of every single one that I looked at. And I feel a bit sort of shameful that I haven't actually seen the film as well. But, Catholic guilt and all that,
listen, it's a bit triggering, I get it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, my first choice is Alec Baldwin in the film Glengarry Glen Ross, which is one of my favourite movies. I love this. It's the ultimate people talking in rooms film because that's all that is. There's various rooms involved, but pretty much that's all they're doing. The basis of this story is it's a sales office where there are 4 salesmen and an office manager, and the salesmen are basically following up leads, which people maybe fill in a form and they send it off, and they're regarded as a lead then for selling. And they're trying to sell off plots of land in various locations, and the stuff that they're trying to sell off is rubbish. And you kind of feel that it's almost like a bit of a con the way they're doing it. And sales have slumped; they're just not there at all. And into the office comes Blake, played by Alec Baldwin, who is he's a former salesman. He's now like a big executive in the company. And Mitch and Murray from Uptown have asked him to come in and motivate the troops. And the way that he motivates the troops is basically threatens them with getting fired. Says first prize is a Cadillac, second prize is a set of steak knives, third prize is your jotters. Basically, you're out the door. And this is the way. So he's in a scene for only, it's less than 10 minutes that he's actually on screen, and he gives this motivational talk to them. And he's horrible. He's a horrible guy. And he drives a fancy car, and he's got a really expensive watch that costs more than they would make in like 6 months. And he just basically hammers it into them that they're all pieces of shit. And they have to really get their act together in order to start making their targets and get the better leads, which they've got a whole bunch of leads for them, and it's all tied up in a wee bow as if it's some sort of wee prize. And they have to try and make so much money over the next couple of days, and this is what informs the rest of the film, because all of the characters, and it's all the salesmen, are all desperate in different ways. Some of them have like real sort of money problems because of like a sick daughter, or they're in over their head. They're not doing well at all. They can't do anything else as well. They just don't know what to do. They're all salesmen. Yeah. They're very good patter-wise, but they're not good when it comes to authority. And the authority here is the form of Blake. Now he's just completely overpowering them. And this just, in a room full of actors where you've got like Ed Harris, you've got Alan Arkin, you've got Jack Lemmon, and Alec Baldwin is able to come in and do this performance and actually outshine everybody else in the room. Is just phenomenal. It's just a stunning performance. And I mean, he was a reasonably well-known actor at the time. So to come in and just do this wee 10-minute bit, you're thinking, absolutely fantastic. Works so well.
Couldn't agree more. Alec Baldwin really is at his best when he's being a bastard. Even if it's like a light-hearted bastard in like 30 Rock or something like that, like he's always just better when he's like playing a character with like a complete mean streak. and he just, as you say, he comes in and basically destroys them all in this. It's such a good choice.
Yep, brilliant. So your second pick?
So I went for a film that I've actually watched fairly recently, and I thought fitted the bill quite nicely. I have gone with Orson Welles in the 1949 film The Third Man. So we don't actually see him for the vast majority of this film. Joseph Cotton's character is looking for him, and there's lots of talk of him. They think he's died, but there's lots of conflicting stories as to how the death happened, how many people saw it, where the body went, etc. So his character, Harry Lime, the first time we saw him, he is like kind of up a lane or like a sort of like close way or whatever, and he's just kind of hiding in the shadows, and we see him pop out to that now iconic image where he's got like the kind of trilby hat on, he's cast in shadow, etc. But he confronts obviously Joseph Cotton's character, they reunite, and they are on a Ferris wheel together. And during this scene, we learn that he has been diluting penicillin on the black market and selling it obviously through Interwar. And we get a speech from Harry Lime. Now, Welles wrote this speech himself, and the character is really charismatic and engaging, but you also know that he's a complete shit and totally amoral. And so it really changes your opinion of who he is. But of course, more than that, we just know that he's not dead as well. So his character is sort of said to personify sort of post-war moral decay and corruption, but really he's just, he's a seducer, he's a sweet talker, and he's just very good at making money, not through the traditional channels. But as I say, the whole way through this film, we've been led to believe that he's dead, and so his reappearance I just think is so striking, and honestly one of the coolest reappearances in films like you'll ever see. Welles didn't actually win any major awards for this film. Third Man won the award for the Academy Award for Best Cinematography, but it is widely considered to be like one of the greatest films ever made. And I love Joseph Cotton. I think he's an absolutely brilliant actor. Shadow of a Doubt is one of my favorite films, but who stands a chance going up against sort of slick talking Orson Welles, so I couldn't not talk about this. I just think, he's charismatic, he's menacing, and obviously his appearance sort of totally changes the direction of the film. So I thought that was a cool one to talk about.
Brilliant. Very good choice. It's a very good film, only marred by the fact that it's got a zither in the soundtrack, which I just can't be doing with at all. I don't like that.
No, I agree.
Instrument. But the film itself, it's fantastic. I think it's on iPlayer at the moment.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So yeah, it's a good one to see. I should have said that Glengarry Glen Ross is currently on ITVX, if you want to give that a watch as well. I thought I had a copy of it for some reason and I couldn't find it, so I had to dig about and try and find an online one. So ITVX it was. But yes, Third Man, great film. Orson Welles is really good. I've seen a documentary about Orson Welles, which is also on iPlayer, which is something I've watched. But I'll talk about that next time we do what we've been watching. But it's very interesting as well, and it features all these sorts of bits and pieces, which is good. So yes, excellent. My second choice is Matthew McConaughey from the 2013 film The Wolf of Wall Street.
Are you going to do
it?
Yeah.
I like the wee whistle part. Again, this is a performance that is very small in the film. He's only in the film maybe 5 minutes or so, and it features him and Leonardo DiCaprio sort of face to face. It's Leonardo DiCaprio is playing a part of Jordan Belford. He is just starting out in the trading game, and he has a one-to-one basically with his boss, and his boss is a wee bit weird, to say the least. He looks emaciated because obviously McConaughey at the time was coming off the back of Dallas Buyers Club, so he was like really.
But you just assume it's coke in this film, so it kind of works with the vibe.
Yeah, you do get that. The character of Mark Hanna is somebody who just lives his life at sort of an extreme, and the way that he steals a scene from Leonardo DiCaprio of all people is he uses a technique that he used in real life for sort of warm-ups before actually going on set. Like actors have certain warm-ups that they do in order to get themselves their voice ready more than anything else, and this is a technique that he actually used, and it was somebody saw him doing it and said that would look really good on the film. So he reluctantly agreed to actually do it on the film. And it's just so weird because they're sitting in a restaurant together and they haven't even ordered drinks or anything yet. So sitting there and there's no food or anything, and they're just talking about back and forward about, you know, what's expected of Jordan in terms of like his work ethic and all that. And then it actually starts with him doing the pumping thing and all that before he actually speaks, and you're going, what the fuck is going on here? This is completely out there. It doesn't make any sense. But it's the fact that this is all his mantra, and then he gets Jordan to join in. You can see him, and he's sitting there and he's kind of, you know, and he's looking about because he's brand new to this. And he's looking about and all that, and he doesn't drink at this point. He doesn't do coke or anything, and it's just fantastic. And it just sets such a high expectation for the rest of the film, because you think, if this is how it's going to start, where are they going to go from here? What's going to happen with this? And it just works so well. And you know instantly, as soon as somebody does that, they go, Wolf of Wall Street. They've seen it. So it's become this iconic cinema moment, in the same way, you know, You Can't Handle the Truth and all this kind of thing. Like Mr. Nicholson stealing the final scene there. So yes, so yeah, it was the first one I actually thought of when we discussed this to begin with. So yes,
that's such a great pick. It's become so iconic in and of itself, and as you say, like, we barely meet this character, but the introduction to him is just absolutely wild. Love it.
So your third and final pick.
Oh, this felt like a nice, straightforward one to pick. I'm going with Anthony Hopkins from the 1991 film Silence of the Lambs. So Hopkins' character, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, actually only appears on screen for 16 minutes out of the film's total runtime, which seems insane when you think of the impact that this particular rendering of the character has had. So we see him sort of get a lot involved in a kind of psychological chess match with Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, and they go toe-to-toe, obviously, while he is in the prison cell. And what I think is so fantastic about this scene is how small and unimposing he looks. Like, he just looks like a middle-aged man in a jumpsuit in a cell. He doesn't look like a threat. But the closer we get to him, we see the evil that Hopkins has put into the character, like through his eyes, through his sort of small but controlled gestures. And we can see how calm and precise and in control he is of himself. He's giving nothing away to Clarice. And of course, we get one of the most quoted lines in cinema of, I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. I'm not going to do the little slabbery bit that he does because I can't do it. But obviously, later on in the film, the stakes are a bit more dramatic. We have like his escape sequence and the final phone call, and you know, there's a lot of blood and guts and all the rest of it. But I think it's that scene in particular that obviously won him the Academy Award, which I believe is still the shortest performance to date to ever win in that category for the men's Oscar. Anyway, I just think that it's a masterclass in how a character can be manipulative and evil, and there's very much a hunter and prey dynamic established between Lecter and Starling straight away. And she's on the back foot because she's a junior, she's new to the job, and he absolutely owns her in that scene. He tries to get her to he tries to therapy talk her into revealing her deepest secrets as well. And he completely owns not just that character, but the entire scene. I mean, I just think he is phenomenal in this film. And I always feel like his screen time is much more than it is, because it is the portrayal of that character. And when I was looking it up and it said he was only on screen for 16 minutes, that kind of felt unreal, because he's so good.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Because you think he is all over that film. Everything about that film is him. And it's one of these ones where basically somebody jumps in, does what they do best, and then jump out again. But they made the most of it. They made the most of their screen time, because everybody knows the character. Everybody knows the fava bean line. They know the wee slurpy bit, which I'm not going to do either because it doesn't come across well into a microphone when you're doing a podcast. But yeah, it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal performance, and yeah, quite rightly stands out. Definitely a very, very good choice there. So I am going to change my third choice, but I'm going to stay with the same film.
Okay.
It's Almost Famous, the film from 2000. I was originally going to choose Philip Seymour Hoffman as Lester Bangs in this film, but I've changed my mind. I am going to choose Frances McDormand in this film.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is a real sort of scene stealer performance. There's a few sort of scene stealer performances in this film. You could have probably talked about Billy Crudup as well as the guitarist in this film, which was a bit of a scene stealer. But I'm going to go with Frances McDormand. The film itself is a bit of a biography, actually, of the director Cameron Crowe, who was a music journalist when he was younger. Now, that in this film, it's a character called William Miller, who is a 15-year-old boy who writes about rock music. And he is encouraged by the writer Lester Bangs, who's played by Hoffman, to find a band, write about them. It goes to a Black Sabbath gig, but he actually meets the support act, Stillwater, and works out a way to tour with them and write about them on the road and write for Rolling Stone by pretending to be somebody older and everything. But William obviously is a young boy, and he has got this mother who is very, very protective of him, to the point where it almost seems quite overbearing. She has a fractious relationship with William's sister, who's slightly older and therefore a bit more confident about fighting back against the mother. But everything she's doing is really for the benefit of her children. It's just two kids and the mother. There's no father or anything around, so she is basically it. And Frances McDormand plays this role absolutely perfectly. She's overbearing, but she's loving at the same time. And she keeps giving William all this sort of motherly advice while he's on the road with this rock band and stuff. And there's a beautiful scene where she says to him all the time, you have to keep in touch with me. Let me know what you're doing. Give me a call and all that. So he's calling her from the road, from various locations and hotels and stuff like that. And he's trying to avoid the fact that he's kind of in over his head, and it's just kind of like this sort of rolling party that he's involved with a 70s rock band. And there's one scene where they're actually backstage at a gig, and he's speaking to his mom and he's saying, yeah, everything's fine, we're in the city and we're doing this and we're doing that. And the Billy Crudup character is standing sort of close, listening to what's going on, and he thinks, for a laugh, I'll just freak out this woman, and start speaking to her, and he's going, hey mom, how you doing, and all that kind of stuff. And then he goes, yes ma'am, yes. He's totally reverential to her. His tone just changes just like that. It's amazing the way, and his whole body changes as well, because he's just sort of very sheepish and all that. And he puts the phone down and he goes, your mom really freaked me out. Because she's telling him about, don't take drugs and all that, and make something of your life, young man, and everything. And it just kind of it gets to his core really, really quickly. It's just brilliant the way that actually happens. And it's such a small scene, but it's one that completely stands out for me because it emphasizes everything, sort of the gap between young people in the 70s and their parents, and how they kind of struggled with the whole fact that they were coming up in the 50s and 60s, and there was like a sort of rebellious time, but then now they're growing up with responsibilities and they're seeing their kids going to even a further extreme. How does that actually work and everything? So I really enjoyed it. I think it's just this sort of top-notch performance for an actor that has gone on to so much from there as well.
Body of work is phenomenal. It's such a good choice. And honestly, I haven't seen Almost Famous in quite some time, but I remember that phone call scene so clearly, because it's just you always get the sense that the way, as you say, the way his body changes and stuff like that as well. You can only imagine to be able to hold a conversation like that with somebody's, your own mum or somebody's granny or something like that. So it's so well done. And as you say, it gives a perfect insight into the character. It's such a good pick.
Nice. Okay, so that is our choices for our scene-stealing moments. As Mary noted at the start of hers, she had a number of honourable mentions, and I'm sure, dear listener, that you have a number of mentions that you could probably add to that list, and perhaps you're screaming at your speaker of choice at the moment. Please let us know if you think there are ones that are better than the ones that we chose. There are obviously a lot out there because actors live to steal scenes more than
Yeah, they
anything
do.
else. Yeah. And I think Jack Nicholson has made a career out of doing it as well. So, but please do let us know. You can find us on all the normal social media channels. Just look for Moviescramble. You can send us an email at podcast@moviescramble.co.uk. If you like what you hear, please give us a rating on the podcast app of your choice. 5 stars, no less. We won't accept anything less than 5 stars, because the amount of effort that we put into this warrants probably a 2-star review, but let's not go there. Please take a look at our back catalogue as well. We have a number of podcasts out there on your feed. We cover quite a lot of stuff, and obviously we are in the midst of doing our Universal Monsters box set marathon at the moment. There are 2 that we've completed. One is actually out on the feed, and the second one is going to go live in the next week or so. But please, if there's anything you'd like us to cover or whatever, let us know. And there will be a wee announcement coming in the next week or so about a slightly new venture that we're going to be doing as well. But we'll discuss that when it actually comes to fruition, because we haven't ironed out all of the details yet. But that is us for today. So all that it remains for me to say is cheerio.
Bye.